The story opens with Julia, an American woman who has just married Francis, a Romanian man. They've recently moved to Bucharest because Francis's company transferred him there. On the taxi ride to their new home, Julia can't follow the conversation between her husband and the Romanian driver. When they arrive at their apartment building, Julia notices someone in a nearby window staring at her. She doesn't think much of it and follows Francis inside, where the landlord greets them and shows them their unit. The apartment has a large front window with a clear view of the building across the street. That night, unable to sleep, Julia stands by the window to relax. She spots the same figure watching her from the opposite building, but decides to ignore it. The next morning, she wakes to a note from Francis explaining that he left quietly so she could rest. Julia spends the day doing housework until her peace is interrupted by the loud music and yelling of her neighbor next door. In the days that follow, she tries to keep busy by exploring the city and starting to learn Romanian. But not knowing the language leaves her feeling isolated and bored. She looks out the window again and sees the same man staring at her from across the street. She keeps this to herself and doesn't mention it to Francis when he returns. That evening, they go out for a pleasant walk until they pass a cordoned-off street filled with police officers and an ambulance. Francis asks a bystander what happened, but no one knows for sure. Later, the news confirms a woman's body was discovered in a house near their neighborhood. The man they saw in the ambulance was the one who found her. The thought of a murderer nearby unsettles Julia, and she finally tells Francis about the stranger who's been watching her. Francis dismisses her concerns, saying she's overthinking it, and asks her to get dinner ready for his colleagues. During the meal, one of his friends, Simon, brings up the murder and claims the victim was found without her head. He also suggests it could be linked to another recent killing where the victim's throat was slit. The police suspect a serial killer, nicknamed the Spider. Later, when Julia goes outside to throw away the trash, she meets her neighbor, Irina, the same woman who was being loud earlier. Irina apologizes for the noise and tells Julia she can always let her know if it happens again. The next day, Julia sees a newspaper with the murder victim's name and starts researching online in English. She learns that there is indeed a serial killer in Bucharest. One survivor's story reveals how she was stalked for days before the attacker broke in, smothered her with a pillow, slit her throat, and sat beside her for hours, watching her die. Shaken by what she's read, Julia begins feeling like someone is following her when she walks around the city. To distract herself, she goes to see an English-language film at a theater. Partway through, a man comes in and chooses to sit directly behind her, even though the place is almost empty. She glances back but can't see his face clearly. When he leans forward toward her, fear takes over, and she quickly leaves the theater. Julia's next outing takes her to the local grocery store, where her heart sinks. The man she's been seeing is there again. Nervous, she hurries through the aisles but accidentally knocks over a jar of pickles. When she glances back, she catches him watching the direction she's headed. She slips into the storeroom area, but before she can calm herself, an irritated employee approaches. Julia takes the chance to leave quickly through the back door. Her growing fear begins to affect her daily life. Feeling trapped, she finally tells Francis about the man in the supermarket. They decide to go back together and ask to review the security footage. While watching, Julia snaps a photo of the man on her phone, but Francis isn't convinced. He insists it's a misunderstanding, claiming the man might have just looked at her because she was staring at him. From then on, Julia's anxiety is impossible to ignore. She stays inside all day, too afraid of running into him again. That night, loud knocks on the door send her heart racing. Slowly, she opens it to find an elderly Romanian woman speaking urgently, though Julia can't understand her. Irina, her neighbor, arrives and translates. The woman's cat has gone missing, and she's asking for help. After Irina convinces her to leave, she invites Julia over for a drink. The two women are enjoying their chat when pounding on the door interrupts them. Irina's ex-boyfriend is outside, shouting angrily in Romanian. She handles the situation and returns, assuring Julia there's nothing to fear. To prove her point, She shows Julia a handgun her ex gave her for protection. Later, back at her own apartment, Julia decides she needs to know for sure if the man is really targeting her or if she's imagining things. She looks out the window, and there he is again, standing in his usual spot. This time, she waves. To her shock, he waves back. Disturbed, she tells Francis and insists on calling the police. When an officer arrives, he and Francis go to speak to the man. They return saying nothing can be done since he hasn't broken any laws. Francis downplays the whole thing, even suggesting it's not strange if the man shops at the same store. Julia, already on edge, feels dismissed, and the two end up arguing. She's left feeling unsafe and very much alone in a foreign city. The next day, she spots the man in town and, acting on impulse, follows him. He leads her to an underground strip club, where she discovers he works as a cleaner. She's equally surprised to see Irina performing there. Irina tells her that cleaners change daily and she's never seen this man before. Before leaving for work, she promises to look out for Julia. That night, Julia dreams the man is inside her apartment, attacking her, but wakes to find it was only a nightmare. Moments later, a scream rings out from Irina's apartment. Fearing for her friend, Julia rushes to get the landlady, and together they unlock the door. The place is empty except for a cat, which the old woman picks up, claiming it must have made the noise. Afterwards, the landlady complains to Francis about Julia's behavior, saying she doesn't want any trouble in the building. Feeling guilty, Francis apologizes to Julia for not being home more often and for letting her feel this way. Still uneasy, Julia calls Irina's workplace, only to be told that no one there knows where she's gone. Later that day, Julia spots a man knocking at Irina's door and realizes it's her fiery ex-boyfriend. She tells him about Irina's sudden disappearance and asks for her phone number. When she calls, they both hear the ringtone coming from inside Irina's apartment, even though no one is home. Julia then persuades him to help her confront the man she saw working at the same club as Irina, the one from the opposite building. They cross the street, and Irina's ex starts banging on the door, shouting threats in Romanian, warning whoever's inside to stay away from Julia. No one answers. He eventually leaves, telling her to contact him if she hears from Irina. After he's gone, Julia knocks herself. The door opens to reveal not the creepy man, but a frightened elderly tenant who is clearly rattled by the shouting. She apologizes and leaves. As she's heading for the stairs, she suddenly comes face to face with a man she's been dreading, confirming he does live there. Julia bolts into the elevator and leaves the building. That night, there's a knock at Julia and Francis's door. The same police officer from before stands there, but this time he has the man from the grocery store with him. The officer introduces him as Mr. Weber. Surprisingly, Weber claims he's the one being harassed, saying Julia and Francis have been stalking him and scaring his father. The officer says he's there to resolve the matter, eventually getting them to shake hands before leaving. Afterwards, Francis shares good news. The serial killer has been caught. Julia looks at the news photo and instantly recognizes the man as the one they saw in the ambulance the night of the first murder. The report says he has a criminal history and once worked for the victim. Francis hopes this will put her mind at ease and stop her worrying about Weber. Hoping to reset their lives, Francis takes Julia to his office party. But things sour when Simon makes a joke in Romanian about Julia spending her time with a spider, the killer's nickname. Julia understands enough to know they're mocking her and storms out. Francis follows, but frustration boils over. He tells her he's tired of her constant fear and paranoia. Julia takes the train home alone, only to notice Mr. Weber sitting in the distance. When the train stops suddenly, he moves to sit directly across from her. Calmly, he explains that his life has been dull, spent caring for his sick father and cleaning for a living. Watching people from his window became a habit, and when she waved at him, it made him feel noticed and happy. Now he wants to be her friend. Julia notices a suspicious plastic bag by his side and quickly excuses herself, getting off the train and heading home. Deciding she's had enough of Francis's disbelief, she starts packing her bags. But music coming from Irina's apartment distracts her. Julia goes next door and finds the door unlocked. Inside, she's horrified to see Irina's decapitated body before being attacked from behind. When she wakes, Weber is there, confirming her worst fear. He admits he killed Irina and hid the body in her closet during the earlier search. Sound from next door signal Francis's return, prompting Julia to cry out, but Weber slashes her throat to silence her. Bleeding, she tries to crawl toward Irina's gun, but collapses before reaching it. Weber lies beside her, waiting until she stops moving. Meanwhile, Francis tries calling his wife, only to hear her phone ringing from Irina's apartment. Across the street, a young girl has been watching the whole thing unfold from her window. Weber notices and heads outside, likely to kill her too, but instead runs into Francis in the hallway. Before Weber can react, multiple gunshots ring out. Julia, who had only pretended to pass out, fires the fatal shots. The film closes with a stunned Francis facing his blood-covered wife, now with undeniable proof that she was telling the truth all along.
Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.